You're aiming the film obviously at a very wide audience, but you don't neglect the film buffs among us, because you talk about Max Linder and you talk about, you know, the White Hell of Pitzpaloo and all that sort of thing. How do you juggle those film buff elements with mainstream audience elements?
I don't have a problem talking a little bit over audiences' heads, because you know, maybe there's people going to see the movie and they don't know who the hell G.W. Pabst is, but maybe after this movie they will. All right, and they don't, and now they do know his name, and they might be like seek him out or something. And you know, the thing about it is, you know, pop culture always works that way. I mean, just to give you just a silly little example, I mean, yeah, I probably now I would probably know who Baron von Richthofen is in The Red Baron, but you know, I knew who he was when I was a little boy because of Snoopy. You know, and so you find, you know, they drop it. Who the hell is that? Who's that? You ask your dad tells you, and there you go. So I kind of like doing that, as long as it doesn't get in the way of the drama or the storytelling, or even more particular, that it actually is organically coming out of the characters.
Nein, 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 nein! Was alles soll ich von diesen Judenschweinen noch ertragen? Schlachten meine Männer ab wie Fliegen.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the other pop references in the film, like your use of music? I mean, you've got Putting Out the Fire, the way you use that, the David Bowie song?
That's always been one of my favorite David Bowie songs, and I was always really disappointed with how Paul Schrader used it in the movie, because he didn't, all right? You know, it's like, he had this awesome song, and he just threw it in the closing credits, you know, like a lot of movies do. And I remember thinking, man, if I had that song written for my movie, I'd build a whole sequence around it. So I did. But where I'm coming from as far as that's concerned is, what I like is, you know, I could have hired somebody to do the Ballad of Shoshana, all right? But that's just too on the nose. One of the things I like when you actually use something that actually exists as something else, where there's a second-hand quality to it, you know, when it's being used, is when you actually listen to the song now played in the scene that you hear it in, you're surprised at how good the lyrics work for her situation, as opposed to being written for her situation. It's surprising. Oh, wow, that's actually very appropriate for her situation. And to me, in a lot of ways, when that's the case, it actually plays even more like interior monologue than if it had been written for it.
Sergeant Hugo Stiglitz. Lieutenant Aldo Rain. These are the Bastards. Ever heard of us?
Inglourious Basterds, which starts with the title Once Upon a Time, is not obviously a realistic film, on many levels, anyway.
I don't 100% accept that, for the simple fact that it's like, you know, I think it's fairly authentic through most of the movie, and you know, but there's also a lot of little things where there's like certain things in the movie where I do a shadow version of what happened in real life, you know. Well, like, you know, like, for instance, the movie that Goebbels is making in my film is Nation's Pride. Well, the movie in real life that he did was a movie called Colesberg, but there are shadows of each other. But where I'm coming from as far as the, you know, there is a section in the movie towards the end where history goes one way and I go the other. And where I'm coming from on that is, yes, the movie does start off with Once Upon a Time in Nazi-occupied France. And if you want to look at it as a fairy tale, you know, feel free. All right, as Londa says, if that tastes better going down, fine. I don't look at it that way. I look at it this way. I look at it as my characters changed the course of the war. Now, that didn't happen because my characters didn't exist. But if they had have existed, everything that happens is fairly plausible.